Sorry, I've lost the loop now. Are we not? Okay, cool. Okay, thank you.
Red flag. Red flag's to slow down.
What? The checkered flag is waiting.
I can see our Checkered Flag podcast being quite spicy.
5 Live's Checkered Flag podcast.
Hello and welcome to Florida, the Sunshine State. We're about 30 minutes outside downtown Miami and we're racing around the Hard Rock Stadium, of course home to the NFL team, the Miami Dolphins. And let me tell you, there is a buzz in the air as the teams and drivers are readying themselves on the grid for the sprint race. It's the second sprint race of the season. And as you might have guessed, it is Max Verstappen on pole position. But can he hang on to the top spot for the entirety of the race? Well, I'm sure Charles Leclerc, who's lining up alongside him on the front row, will have something to say about that. It's Rosanna Tennant with you down here in the pit lane, and in the commentary box I'm joined by lead commentator Harry Benjamin, former Formula One driver Jolyon Palmer, and the BBC's F1 correspondent Andrew Benson. Jolyon Palmer coming into the circuit, there was a real vibe, a real buzz, wasn't there? People really excited to see the Formula One cars racing. They get 2 bites of the cherry this weekend with the sprint race. You excited for this short, snappy little race before us?
Oh, why not? It's a Formula One race. It's 19 laps around this Miami circuit, and we've got Max Verstappen at the front of the grid, which is the ever-present driver there, the man that is pretty much impossible to beat unless he has something go wrong. But you never know around this circuit. There are walls on the side of the track. There's overtaking opportunities as well. Things can go wrong. So let's see what unfolds.
A couple little updates for you. Alex Albon will start from the pit lane. The team at Williams making some changes to his car under part firme conditions. And then there was an altercation in the pit lane, wasn't there, Harry, as some of the drivers were making their way out to the grid. Tell me what's going on there.
Yeah, unsafe release from the Alpine team, releasing Esteban Ocon into the path of Charles Leclerc. There was actually contact, and Ocon has already had to have a change of front wing, and as a result has already been given a 10-second time penalty for that. So this effectively now becomes a bit of a testing session for him.
Well, interesting you say that, because is that how the teams and drivers are going to approach this sprint race, or at least those who aren't in the points-paying positions? Is this a bit of a testing session and setting them up for qualifying later on for the Grand Prix and the race tomorrow as well, Andrew?
Well, I mean, it is a test session in a way, Rosanna, of course, because they can change the cars after the sprint, which is a new development for this year, and they will change the cars for the sprint. Williams have already done that with Alex Albon. He started from the pit lane. But I think the thing is that the problem with the sprint is that drivers don't want to take too many risks because there aren't that many points at stake. And in this case, Verstappen's on pole. No one really thinks they can challenge him for race pace. Verstappen was pretty much saying that himself yesterday. So as usual, I'm afraid this year it's going to be all about who can be battling for those minor points positions behind him unless something goes wrong for him.
Well, as you say, people may not want to take some risks, but Jolyon, I know you've got your eye on the McLarens. Lando Norris looked like he could be challenging for pole position yesterday for the sprint. Can he weave his way through the field, or does he not want to take risks, and does he want to focus on the qualifying session later on today for his main target?
Well, that'll be his big chance because they've got upgrades on both McLarens. They've got a full upgrade package on Norris's car, which looked like it was paying off big time yesterday in qualifying for this sprint. He was the fastest man in the whole of qualifying on a medium tyre in SQ2, but made a mistake in SQ3, only starts 9th in this session. And so he's got a lot of work to do. I think in 19 laps in that McLaren, maybe he'd be aiming for a top 5, top 6. His teammate Oscar Piastri starts 6th as well. There's plenty for them to do. But the big chance for those guys is going to be coming up later on. Another look at qualifying and of course the Grand Prix, which is still the main event coming up tomorrow.
Well, let's focus on the sprint race then. As the mechanics remove the tyre blankets, Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, goodness me, he's had an interesting weekend, Harry, hasn't he? Facing the wrong way, or sort of half the wrong way in practice, meant he didn't really get much track running yesterday, but managed to get the job done. He's lining up on the front row alongside Max Verstappen. That first turn, is that his biggest opportunity in the sprint today, do you reckon?
I would say so. He's got to get a decent start. I mean, Leclerc has a pretty good standing when it comes to racing around street circuits, but he really went from 0 to hero, having absolutely limited practice running and then going straight into sprint qualifying and putting it on the front row. It was incredibly impressive as they get away for the formation lap. We'll have 19 laps for this sprint around the Miami International Autodrome, and this is how they all stack up. It is Max Verstappen on the front row in that P1 position alongside him, Charles Leclerc. Sergio Perez is third in front of Daniel Ricciardo in the RB, and Carlos Sainz rounds out the top 5. Piastri, Stroll, Alonso, Norris and Hülkenberg round out the top 10. Then it's the two Mercedes who just missed out on that top 10 start. Russell ahead of Hamilton, Ocon, Magnussen, Tsunoda make up the remainder of the top 15. Then it's Gasly in 16th, Joe, Sargent, Bottas and Alex Albon will start from the pit lane. So only 19 cars on the grid, one from the pit lane. And also to bring you up to speed with those with penalties, we mentioned that Alex Albon and the Williams team found some discrepancies with the setup and the balance, so they've made adjustments there. So they've broken the Parc Fermé rules, which means they have to start from pit lane. Valtteri Bottas is down in 19th. He received a 3-place grid penalty for driving unnecessarily slowly and having a bit of an altercation with the McLaren of Oscar Piastri in sprint qualifying yesterday, and that gives you a little look at what's happening further back. So for those, Jolyon, it really is a bit of a testing session, because points in the sprint, of course, only go down to the top 8.
Yeah, there's plenty in this field that are not going to be thinking they've got much chance, apart from trying to find a bit more pace for qualifying later on, but mainly the race tomorrow, where there's plenty more that can unfold. But you never know around 19 laps. Chance of a safety car is still there. The chance to overtake, the chance to make some places at the start as well. It's a tricky first corner, short run to a tuck to right, and then you flow through a couple of S-bends, and it's all quite fast and frantic at the start.
Yeah, just over 5.4 kilometres this track, 19 corners, 7 to the right, 12 to the left, and this the third visit to Miami, and this year hosts the second of 6 sprint events, going back-to-back for sprints with China a couple of weeks ago. The sun shining down on this circuit, and it is hot and getting hotter as well. Air temperature almost at 29 degrees, track temperature at 46.5 degrees as well. It's going to be a mission to manage not only the drivers' levels of perspiration, but also the tyres in this kind of heat.
Medium tyres for everyone bar Tsunoda and Sargent further back, so they're going to find out what's going on the soft. I'm interested to see what Daniel Ricciardo can do, starting 4th in the RB. Huge opportunity for him. He's been under pressure so far this season. If he can deliver some points here, some decent points, that'll go a long way to alleviating a bit of that pressure. And then at the top, can Charles Leclerc take the fight to Verstappen off the line? Can he medal with the Red Bulls?
Well, as they begin to pull up onto the grid, Max Verstappen and Charles Leclerc already in their positions on the front row, just sitting and waiting for those at the back. Alex Albon will go from the pit lane in the Williams, so the back row will look like Valtteri Bottas in 19th, Logan Sargent is 18th, as they slowly make their way round that last right-hand kink. Logan Sargent, the American, fighting to hold on to his seat in Williams amidst rumours growing of the young Andrea Kimi Antonelli, the Formula 2 racer backed by Mercedes, perhaps getting that seat before the end of the year. Looking to put on a good show. Green flag waves at the back of the pack. Charles Leclerc on the front row. On pole is Max Verstappen. It's all eyes to the lights and foot to the floor as we go racing for the Miami sprint. And it's a good start from the front row. Verstappen squeezes Leclerc on the inside. Leclerc has to bail out. Verstappen through into the right-hander. Perez runs deep. Ricciardo scoops round the outside. Ricciardo makes the move up into third. Great start for the RB driver. Hülkenberg as well further back, making gains from 10th place, but Verstappen leads coming through the S-bends.
It's a great start then from Verstappen, holding off Charles Leclerc, and an even better start for Daniel Ricciardo, who's got ahead of Sergio Perez. Perez had to think about going around the outside of Leclerc, who was thwarted by Verstappen, and then got forced a little wide, and through goes Daniel Ricciardo.
Lando Norris has had an issue. He's stuck in at the exit of turn 2, and he says, I'm out, I got hit. The man who could have put it on pole position for the sprint yesterday, were it not for a mistake in sector 1, now finds himself out early doors.
Leclerc attacking Verstappen though as they came down to turn 11 is not done yet at the front of the race. Verstappen under pressure, and Ricciardo is right with them halfway around this lap as well in the RB. Norris saying he got hit. There's been big moves for the Haas drivers, and Lewis Hamilton now up into 9th as the safety car is deployed.
Down the back straight, that long over 1 kilometre back straight, as they all suddenly bunch up, slow down, safety car out then, not even 1 lap into this race. Verstappen leads Leclerc, Ricciardo, Perez signs the top 5, then it's Piastri, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Hamilton, Tsunoda the top 10, Rosanna.
Yeah, and Fernando Alonso's also got a puncture, so some drivers picking up damage as Lando Norris's car is stranded and the marshals start to run to him to recover it. They're going to want to get this sprint back underway as quickly as possible, but he's a little bit way away from the barriers, so it's going to take a while to get his car. Oh, here comes the crane. The crane is being driven onto the track now, and the marshals are setting to work.
Yeah, so it's really jumbled up a bit. So you mentioned there possible puncture for Fernando Alonso, the other Aston Martin of Lance Stroll as well, having had a great sprint qualifying, plummeting down through the field. We're just getting a replay of the start now, Jolien.
So Norris starts 9th. He's got Alonso to his right. He's got Stroll right in front of him in 7th. Then he goes around the outside. The 2 Aston Martins have contact. In steams Hamilton on the inside. And then Norris is flicked around by Lance Stroll on the outside. They were pretty much 4 wide momentarily. The 2 Aston Martins bundling into each other. Alonso having a bit of contact with his teammate. Stroll has fallen all the way to the back of the field as well. This is the sound on board Fernando Alonso. He's going to have Hamilton steaming up the inside, and there's contact there as well.
Whoa. Hamilton arrived like a bull.
He did, but also Alonso was quite aggressive to Stroll as well, who had then Norris on the outside. I think Alonso was also to blame for that own bit of contact. Hamilton was just trying to pass Nico Hülkenberg, I think, and then he did steam in pretty hard.
I'll tell you what, it's lucky for Hülkenberg, who backed right out of it to avoid himself getting involved in that concertina. That managed to shove him all the way up to 7th at the end. This is the sound of Lewis Hamilton making his way off the grid. So he's tucked right up behind Hülkenberg and then dives right down the inside.
Yeah, it's a really aggressive move from Hamilton, and that is the instigator really on the inside for the collision.
There's a gap on the inside, so went for it.
He went for the inside of Hülkenberg, but ended up drifting into the cars ahead. He was so committed on the brakes. Meanwhile, you've got Stroll and Norris on the outside of the 4, and they were sort of pincering in. So actually, Alonso was still quite way on the inside of the road, and that's the thud into the back of the McLaren, who is spun round and out. Tough day for tough 24 hours for Lando Norris, not qualifying well and out of the race, as is Lance Stroll with that whack as well.
Shame for Lance Stroll as well, who actually out-qualified his teammate for this and started 7th. The 2 Aston Martins started this race 7th and 8th. Now Alonso right at the back, Stroll out of this race along with Lando Norris. It was also a poor start for George Russell, who found himself tumbling down the order. Under safety car conditions then, it's Verstappen, Leclerc, Ricciardo, Perez signs the top 5. Piastri, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Hamilton, Tsunoda the top 10. Then it's Ocon, Gasly, Sargent, Joe, Russell the top 15, Bottas and Albon the 17 drivers, then Alonso with a possible puncture for the 2nd consecutive sprint in a row. Stroll and Norris out of this race.
And I think Hamilton could be in trouble there. I don't think that was the wisest decision to send that lunge down the inside. I think he was just trying to pass Hülkenberg, and he was so focused on the Haas, but he just committed too deep and was never really in a position to be attacking the Aston Martins further ahead, and just drifted into the side of Alonso, who was already committed with Stroll on his outside. Stroll turning in, Alonso side by side.
So on data, Fernando, the car looks all okay. We'll keep checking.
Yeah, copy.
Fernando Alonso then getting the reassurance, but the team's still checking. Andrew?
I also wonder, Jolien, whether there was a bit of a lack of awareness on the part of Lance Stroll for a 2nd race in a row. He came in very sharp from the outside line with Alonso on his inside. First corner is always going to be a bit sticky down there. It seemed to me like that turning was a bit too aggressive from him in the circumstances.
Yeah, he did. He came in quite hard towards the apex. He had Norris on his outside as well. I think Lando had plenty more space on the outside at turn 1, but was okay there. As you know, he was hit by Stroll. Stroll was sort of turning in and squeezing Alonso a little bit more, and there was not much more Fernando could do because he had Lewis Hamilton flying in on the inside. To me, Hamilton is the main instigator in that one, and then you're looking at the 2 Aston Martins really, and probably Stroll for turning in and not opening up the steering with them 3 wide.
Well, after the lap 1, turn 1 skirmish involving the two Aston Martins. Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris has seen Stroll and Norris out of this sprint. Safety car coming to an end then, and it was a good start from Verstappen initially. Leclerc was really piling on the pressure, but Verstappen very aggressive going into that turn 1, squeezing Leclerc all the way to the inside.
Big opportunities in this one now. You've got Norris and Stroll out of the race. Alonso's right at the back. Russell's 14th. Hamilton may well have damage in 9th. I'd be surprised if there's not a little bit of front wing damage that he's incurred. Meanwhile, Ricciardo is 3rd. Huge opportunity for him. And you've got both Haas cars. Hulkenberg 7th, Magnussen 8th. Points go down to there. They've been just nudging away 1 or 2 points here or there. They can do it again.
This is massive for some of those teams in the lower half of the field, particularly a fierce fight as well down in the mid-pack between the RB team and the Haas team too. And right now, well, Ricciardo would be scooping a handful of points. 8 points for the winner of the sprint, all the way down to 1 point for 8th, currently in the hands of Kevin Magnussen in the Haas. Okay, safety car has made it back to the pits, and Max Verstappen effectively takes over as the pace setter, weaving left, weaving right. When will he go? That will be the question as they come into the braking zone for the final corner. The left-hander, Verstappen, then applies the throttle, and he is gone. And it's been a great start for Max Verstappen as we kick back on with the Miami sprint. Lap 4 of 19. Verstappen leads Leclerc into turn 1. Daniel Ricciardo slots in behind in the RB in 3rd. Then it's Perez, Sainz, Piastri, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Hamilton and Tsunoda. The only man on the soft compounder tyre up into the top 10. But nice clean start from Max Verstappen in the Red Bull.
Yeah, nearly a second clear of Leclerc through the opening couple of corners. So he's managed to get those medium tyres fired up and working immediately. Looking at Hamilton, I think his front wing's actually still intact, so the Mercedes has absorbed the contact and he looks to be okay, running right in behind the two Haas cars. It's Magnussen in 8th, who's under pressure now from Hamilton.
This, the battle over that final points paying position. Kevin Magnussen keen to add to his points tally. A man also under pressure for his seat. His teammate goes off to Sauber next year, which becomes Audi. That's Nico Hulkenberg. He's currently in 7th. Magnussen behind, with Hamilton right on his rear wing. But if anybody can defend, it's Kevin Magnussen. We saw it earlier in the year, keeping a huge gaggle of cars behind him in the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix. And 1 point will mean so much for the likes of K-Mag in the Haas. But this is the sound with Lewis Hamilton as he runs down the back straight, closing in on Kevin Magnussen. DRS will be enabled as he closes up in the next lap or so, but at the moment just has to try and use the toe behind Magnussen. Does he have a look down the inside? No, he's not close enough on that occasion.
Leclerc already now 1 second away from Verstappen. Don't think he's going to be able to get within the DRS range unless he can find something in the first sector when this is opened up. So Verstappen through ahead of Leclerc. Ricciardo having a strong drive once again, holding firm with the top 2 on that opening lap after the restart, and Magnussen soaking up the pressure from Hamilton, but so far doing a good job.
Yep, lap 5 now of 19. The sun beats down on this Miami International Autodrome circuit at home to the Miami Dolphins NFL team, built around their Hard Rock Stadium, a mixture of permanent and semi-permanent roads that form this just over 5 kilometre circuit. Verstappen leads now by 1.1 seconds. It does seem to have calmed down a little bit. The closest gaps at the moment, though, starting to form up. Perez right on the rear of Ricciardo and then goes through on Ricciardo, but he runs deep coming into the left-hander, but he manages to make it stick. Perez makes the move on Ricciardo. The Red Bull now ahead of the RB, up into 3rd.
At the first time of asking, as soon as the DRS was available, Perez swept through and Ricciardo did not fight that one too hard. Now behind him is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Piastri right there as well. Then there's a little bit of a break. Back to Nico Hulkenberg. This is the sound on board Carlos Sainz's Ferrari. Down to the final corner. It's a tight left-hander. Maybe getting close enough for a lunge here.
Onto the brakes, has a little look down the inside, but isn't close enough to try a move on the RB in front. The slightly altered Ferrari livery, the blue glints, the Azzurro blue shining brightly in the sunlight. Now onto the main straight, DRS open, Ricciardo defends to the inside, that forces Sainz round the outside, he bails out. Sainz got to be careful here because Piastri is only half a second behind in the McLaren as well, lurking ready to make his move in a 50% upgraded McLaren. Sainz still behind Ricciardo for the time being as they make their way through turn 4 and 5. The fast left-right S's that take you through there. The long left-hander of turn 6. Then turn 7 feeds you out through 8.
Ricciardo's done a good job to stay within DRS range of Sergio Perez, though. So as they come past the long straight now up towards turn 11, Ricciardo's actually right there with Perez still for third position.
Yeah, only half a second between Perez and Ricciardo. Ricciardo still able to get the DRS. Perez not able to get that rear wing flap open. He is not within a second of Charles Leclerc, who was almost 3 seconds ahead. It's Verstappen who leads by 1.5 seconds. Then comes Leclerc, Perez third, but still Ricciardo right up behind him. Sainz and Piastri in close nick behind.
Yeah, Perez will be facing another DRS attack from Ricciardo into the final corner. He's not going to be able to break away on this lap, but he needs to try and create a bit of space back to Sainz, because Sainz is looking quite racy in 5th position.
Down that long back straight, DRS, but it's beginning to form a little bit of a train. Perez doesn't have it, but at the moment he's keeping Ricciardo at bay, who in turn is keeping Sainz and Piastri at bay. Then come the two Hasses, still occupying 7th and 8th. Hamilton not able to find a way through and up into the points. Onto the start-finish straight, up in 4th is the Daniel Ricciardo RB car. Hides that inside line coming into turn 1. Defensive moves from Ricciardo to keep the fast-charging Sainz in the Ferrari behind. And at the moment, proving successful for the Australian, who needs a good run of form in order to hold on to that RB seat.
Ricciardo could be under pressure this time around, though. They sweep through the fast corners of the first sector. Now it's a long 180-degree triple apex left, 6, 7 and 8. And now is he going to be within DRS range of Perez? If not, Sainz is ready to pounce.
1.3 seconds between the leaders, Verstappen and Leclerc. Verstappen has this race under control. Perez in third, 7/10 in front of Daniel Ricciardo, who's got Sainz for company still, closes up into the braking zone, but they cannot find a way through. Piastri 6th, Hülkenberg, Magnussen the top 8. They are your point scorers in the sprint as they make their way up that big incline through the fast 14 and 15 corners.
Ricciardo's still there with Perez. That's the sound of them all getting on the gas out of turn 16. Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz, Piastri, and then Hülkenberg and Magnussen aren't miles away either. No one is falling away from the Red Bull in third position. Ricciardo will get DRS down towards 17 once again, the tight left-hander, and it's allowing him to defend from Sainz, who is looking really good out of this corner. The tight left-hander then at the end of the lap, and he's able to exit tight, getting a good run on Ricciardo each time.
Hamilton, I think, actually had a bit of a mistake coming into that final corner. Had to have a couple of goes on the steering wheel. Still chasing Kevin Magnussen for that 8th spot. Just a point up for grabs. Here is Hamilton on the radio.
Very slow on the straight. Okay, copy.
Hamilton saying, I'm very slow on the straight, to his engineer, Pete Bronnington. And when you're down that long, over 1 kilometre back straight, you really don't want to be lacking straight line speed.
Yeah, out front, Verstappen and Leclerc are toe-to-toe at the moment. For the last few laps, there's been not much to separate. 300ths to Max Verstappen on the last lap, and Perez is half a second a lap slower than the top 2, and that is why he can't even shake off Daniel Ricciardo right now.
Hamilton chasing and chasing Kevin Magnussen. He'll get the DRS. Magnussen a bit detached from his teammate now, will not get the DRS into the left-hander. Magnussen takes the defensive line, runs deep, so too does Hamilton. Magnussen holding on to his 8th place at the moment like his life depends on it, and they're bringing Yuki Tsunoda in the RB along for the ride as well, through the left-right of 14 and 15. That brings you then to a short squirt on the throttle into the left-hander of 16, down that long back straight. Magnussen 8, Hamilton 9, Tsunoda 10, but Hamilton will get the DRS. The drag reduction system, the rear wing flap will open. He's within a second, and it opens as they make their way past the 300-metre braking board. They're braking much later than that, but he still can't find a way through. Verstappen leads, 1.7 seconds the gap to Leclerc. Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz the top 5. Piastri, then Hülkenberg, Magnussen the top scorers, but at this point still very much up for grabs. Hamilton 9th, Tsunoda 10th, Gasly is 11th, Sargent 12th, Joe. Russell down in 14th, chasing Joe Guan Yu, but not able to make huge inroads. He's within a second though. Bottas rounds out the top 15. Albon, who started from the pit lane, has got himself up to 16. It's been a poor race so far from Esteban Ocon in the Alpine, who had a good qualifying, but is now down in 17th, behind his teammate and Fernando Alonso with the suspected puncture early doors and the collision involving his teammate and Lando Norris into turn 1 on lap 1, 18th and last, and no Lance Stroll, no Lando Norris, who retired from this race.
On the last lap, Verstappen 3/10 quicker than Leclerc, so the gap now 1.7 seconds out front. Perez matched Leclerc.
Just gained an advantage. Skip the chicane. Okay, copy.
Lewis is absolutely right. That was Magnussen under pressure. I wondered how he was so clear coming into turn 17, the end of the long back straight. It's because he jumped the chicane at 15 and made himself a nice buffer. Hamilton right back with him again on this lap around. Magnussen feeling the heat. It did look like he gained an advantage, but when did he give it back? It's always a bit of a grey area, that one.
Yeah, Hamilton will be doing all he can through that radio message to try and make sure that the stewards are all over that one. That battle for 8th continues. 10 laps to go. Other close battles to watch out for. Daniel Ricciardo in the RB with an absolutely stellar drive so far is clinging on to 4th place, but Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari down the start-finish straight into turn 1, closes right up to the back, tries to find a way through but cannot, but he's all over the rear end of that RB through the sweepers up through 4 and 5. Can't find a way through. The Ferrari desperate to get into that top 4. Mere 10th separate them, and Oscar Piastri too is only a further corner behind.
Perez is jumping clear then of this 4th place battle. Now he's finding a little bit more pace, the Mexican. He's closing in towards Charles Leclerc as well, who's dropping away half a second down on Verstappen on the last lap. So with Perez finding his feet, Ricciardo slipping back to the clutches of this man. The sound you can hear is Carlos Sainz in the Ferrari. Ricciardo goes defensive down towards turn 11, and Sainz will have to wait patiently now through the tight left-hander. Then the track goes round to the right-hand side, a long corner, narrow circuit, difficult to make a pass. Ricciardo feeling the heat now.
Doing a superb job, though, in soaking it all up. Magnussen leaving the track and gaining an advantage in his fight with Lewis Hamilton, where he cut the chicane at turns 14 and 15, has been noted by race control. We'll keep you across that to see if it is elevated. Here's our leader, though, Verstappen.
Balance and deg update, please, Max.
Terrible. 0 road grip, like Wally.
Max Verstappen, 0 rear grip, like quali, yet he's got almost 2 seconds to Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari and leads this sprint on lap 11 of 19.
Perez was the fastest man of the top 3 on the last lap for the 2nd lap in a row. I wonder if Verstappen's taken a little bit out of his tyres as well. Leclerc was 4/10 quicker than the race leader. Not over at the front, and the degradation on this medium tyre doesn't look insignificant either. Ricciardo still fighting with Carlos Sainz through the first sector now. Left-hander of 4, then we're going to go through the right-hander of 5 and into the treble left-hander 6, 7 and 8, and Sainz will get another chance with the DRS. Ricciardo's top speed is very good though in the RB.
Daniel Ricciardo, who hasn't scored a point all season long, looking to try and get 4th place in this sprint. There are less points up for grabs in the sprint, 8 for the winner, and then all the way down to 1 point for 8th place. This the sound of Lewis Hamilton, who has finally got side by side with Kevin Magnussen. We'll have the outside line coming into the left-hander. Magnussen holds that inside line, runs deep. Will he get the apex on the right-hander? Hamilton forced a long way round. What's their contact as Magnussen holds 4 and slides that Haas back through as they make their way uphill through 14 and 15.
I think there was contact there. I think Magnussen was sending it in late on the left-hander of turn 11. He always fights for any sort of position, points or not, as if it's his last ever race, and he's doing the same with Hamilton right now as Hamilton gets back underneath the rear wing of the Haas.
And that incident has been upgraded from noted to under investigation for cutting the chicane and gaining an advantage for Kevin Magnussen, and as I say that, Kevin Magnussen with a penalty. It's a 10-second time penalty for leaving the track and gaining an advantage. Meanwhile, trying to gain 4th place is Carlos Sainz round the outside into turn 1 on Daniel Ricciardo, but he still can't do it. Ricciardo holds 4th, Sainz 5th, and Piastri well and truly in this fight now in 6th.
Ricciardo is having a blinder. Sainz has looked quick from the first lap of this one, pressuring the Aussie in 4th position. But Ricciardo late on the brakes at turn 1. This is looking like the Daniel Ricciardo we used to know. in the Red Bull days.
Yeah, just drove into me.
Copy, yeah, we got that on video.
It was aggressive from Magnussen, so he sent it deep at 11, then he comes off the road into 12, washes wide into Hamilton.
Off the track.
So this is now giving me shades of Jeddah, where Magnussen was fighting as if his life depended on it with Yuki Tsunoda to try and help his teammate out. And he's kind of doing the same now. He's got a penalty, he's in the points position, but it won't be worth anything because he's got that 10-second penalty. But he wants to keep Hamilton at bay to help his teammate who's up the road.
Race control, Hamilton speeding in the pit lane has been noted. That is usually black and white on that one, and you'll get the penalty, but noted for the time being. And his chase continues of Kevin Magnussen. This is a really big deal for Haas, though, because they're in a locked-in fight for 6th in the constructors with RB. If Daniel Ricciardo can finish in 4th, he'll get a plum 5 points to his name. Hulkenberg and Magnussen need 7th and 8th. It will give them 3 points if they can hold on to it, and it'll keep that fight as close as it can be. But this is the last thing that a Haas needs. It's a bit of a crazy race with some big hitters like Norris and Alonso find themselves either out or at the back of this pack, and then suddenly Daniel Ricciardo and an RB can get a pretty decent result and extend their gap in the constructors. This fight's so much bigger than what we're seeing on the road at the moment. But Magnussen now, with that 10-second time penalty, I'm sure, Jolene, he'll just be holding Hamilton up for as long as he can to give his teammate Hulkenberg that buffer. We are lap 13 of 19, so we're running out of time.
Oh, Hamilton is right with him, coming through turn 8. He's going to have another chance now, and this is just frustration for Hamilton. Magnussen has got a penalty. He'll probably get another penalty for running into him on the last lap, but he's being a roadblock right now in 8th place. Hamilton will inherit that when the penalties are applied, but he wants to go up the road and chase Hulkenberg down.
Hamilton has a look into the left-hander once again of turn 11. That is where, and the scene of the incident a couple of laps ago, where Magnussen did indeed make contact with Hamilton, who closes right underneath the Haas coming up through the chicane of 14 and 15. And they're bringing the other RB along as well, of Yuki Tsunoda, and actually pretty much the rest of that midfield gang of Gasly, Sargent, Joe, Russell, all within view of this fight. Magnussen holding everybody up right now in this battle for 8th. Magnussen down that back straight. The only car will not get DRS, but it doesn't seem that the DRS is that powerful for Hamilton, who said he's struggling with that straight line speed to try and get alongside Magnussen and the Haas to make the move into the braking zone.
Overtaking is not proving easy. Hamilton struggling for top speed. Sainz is still fighting with Daniel Ricciardo, 6/10 away from the Aussie in 4th position. This is the sound of the Ferrari in the first sector, sweeping through the right-hander of 3. A brake and down a gear for the left-hander of 4, feathering out of the throttle, clambering over the curbs through 5 and then 6, and he'll get the DRS on the exit of this left-hander as it tightens through turn 8, squeezes on the throttle, but Ricciardo's exits are good, his top speed is good, and so far Sainz is still waiting, trying to pick up any sort of remains of scraps, but Ricciardo making an error. He's got DRS here, closing in, this might be a chance.
Sparks fly from the underside of the RB of Daniel Ricciardo as he breaks into the corner. Meanwhile, we'll see how that one plays out, but we're being shown Hamilton swooping round the outside of Kevin Magnussen, who practically runs himself and Lewis Hamilton both off into the exit of 11, and that's going to allow Yuki Tsunoda to sweep round the outside of Hamilton. The RB driver gets up into 9th, Hamilton down to 10th, but Magnussen practically ran himself and Hamilton off the road.
Stupid racing from Magnussen now. He's got penalties, he doesn't care, he's just going to keep them behind to hell or high water, but it's ridiculous just sending it in deep so that Hamilton can't turn, Magnussen can't turn because he's out of control. It's a little bit ridiculous.
And the drivers complained about this, Jolene, didn't they, after Jeddah when Magnussen was being like this? It's like he gets a 10-second penalty, but it doesn't actually punish him, but it does punish everybody else because he's still driving like this.
They've got to get him out of the way. It's just ruining the race for others around. And it's one thing being aggressive but fair, but being aggressive and ludicrous. He's already run into Hamilton by flinging it in off the road. This time Hamilton comes around the outside. He's ahead into the braking zone by a full car length and a bit. Magnussen sends it in deep.
Yeah, push yourself a track.
He's miles off himself, is Magnussen. If he even had an attempt at staying on the track, then you'd think it's okay and it's typical Magnussen, but he's just doing whatever it takes, whether it's in the rules or outside of the rules, and he doesn't care.
Magnussen's actually fallen down to 10th now, so Tsunoda will get currently that 8th place in front of Hamilton. So it's double pay for Hamilton, who is now behind the RB of Tsunoda. Hamilton 9th, Magnussen 10th. This is live coverage of the second sprint of the season here in Miami. Alongside myself is the former F1 driver Jolyon Palmer, BBC F1 correspondent Andrew Benson, and we're currently witnessing an epic battle for 4th place at the moment. Daniel Ricciardo still keeping Sainz in front of him, and the other RB of Yuki Tsunoda is keeping Lewis Hamilton at bay for the final point in 8th spot at the moment. Hamilton desperate to try and clinch something from what is still a car that they fundamentally are really struggling to understand. Down the back straight, DRS open for Lewis Hamilton, closes in on the back of Yuki Tsunoda, has a little peek to the inside, but he's not close enough to try a move.
Yeah, Tsunoda then has benefited from Magnussen's antics. Ironically, he was the driver that lost out in Jeddah for Magnussen's antics, so what goes around comes around for Yuki Tsunoda, trying to pick up a point. The other RB, as he said, up in 4th place, having a brilliant drive, Daniel Ricciardo. 8 seconds down on Perez now, who's disappeared, but Ricciardo in 4th, still looking like he could bag a load of points.
Russell racing down for 14th spot at the moment, battling with Alex Albon, the Williams driver versus a former Williams driver. Albon started from the pit lane. Russell started down in 11th. It's been a tough sprint for George Russell of the Mercedes. It'll be little comfort to keep Albon behind him for the time being. And penalty for, you guessed it, Kevin Magnussen, hit with another 10-second time penalty. It will mean nothing to the Haas driver now, who is in 10th. No points up for grabs. Gasly closing in behind him.
I think he could have another one coming as well. That's how ridiculous it's been for Magnussen. One for leaving the track, gaining an advantage. The other one for causing a collision coming in from off the track into Hamilton. And the other one for forcing his rival off as well. So there's 3 incidents that Magnussen can be investigated for. He's been done for 2 of them. I don't know if the stewards will keep going with that, but it just shows the extent that he was just desperate to keep those behind. Trying to help his teammate out. He's built a huge buffer now. Hulkenberg looks safe in 7th position, and it is Tsunoda in 8th. But he's on the soft tyres, Yuki. 3 laps to go. They're going to start to be falling away.
Lap 17 of 19, 3 laps to go for this Miami sprint. Verstappen leads Leclerc by 2.5 seconds. Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz the top 5. Piastri, Hulkenberg, Tsunoda, Hamilton, Magnussen the top 10. Gasly, Sargent, Zhou, Russell, Albon the top 15. Bottas, Alonso and Ocon. The 18 drivers still in this race with no Lance Stroll and no Lando Norris after an incident in turn 1 of lap 1.
Magnussen's under investigation for another one, which is exceeding track limits too many times. So he had the black and white flag for 4 incidents, and now he's gone over again, and that could be another penalty coming his way. He could have 40 seconds worth of penalties here.
Magnussen notching up the penalties like no tomorrow. That battle for the final point is still going on. Half a second between Tsunoda in the RB and Hamilton in the Mercedes. This is going rather well for the RB team, who look set to take a double points finish in this sprint. Ricciardo having a sublime race. Is this a revitalised Daniel Ricciardo? New chassis last time out in China. Upgrades coming as well. Currently sitting pretty in 4th and keeping the Ferrari of Carlos Sainz behind him, who's been targeting him all race long but cannot make that move. 7/10 now split Ricciardo and Sainz.
Ricciardo glued to his left-hand mirror as he's coming down towards turn 17. He knows the Ferrari's there. He's been there for 17 laps now. Slightly wide at the apex, but still able to get good traction coming out of the final corner. They flash past our commentary box on the exit of the final corner, and Ricciardo should fight for another day here as they start the penultimate lap. Sainz getting closer, but he's not close enough for a lunge. The top speed of that RB is looking good. It's frustrating Hamilton down in 8th and 9th as well. Tsunoda ahead of Hamilton.
Yeah, Ricciardo and Sainz, the closest battle on the track at the moment, along with Tsunoda and Hamilton further back outside the points. No prizes up for grabs, but pride certainly at stake. Sargent, Zhou and Russell all battling over 12th, 13th and 14th, and actually you can include Albon and Bottas in that as well. Alonso and Ocon a little bit detached further back in the pack. Not by much though, they're still within a second of Valtteri Bottas in 16th, but Alonso being caught up in that incident in turn 1 with his teammate Lance Stroll and Lewis Hamilton and Lando Norris as well. Saw him tumble down the order. Meanwhile, the battle still continues through turn 11 and 12. Ricciardo running a little bit deep in the RB, but Sainz cannot pounce.
Sainz forcing Ricciardo to just cover slightly the middle of the road, compromise his line coming through turn 11. Bounce over the curve at the right hand of the chicane. Then it's a tight left-hander as we jump on board with the Ferrari in 5th position, accelerating now up towards the final corner on the circuit. Ricciardo's good in the low-speed corners. He's good through 11, the left-hander, the right-hander at 12, and then the chicane. and he gets himself just a little bit of breathing space before the braking zone for the final corner. 1 lap to go for Sainz to try and make the difference.
Max Verstappen embarks on the final lap of this sprint. This the second of 6 sprint weekends Formula One has planned for this season. We'll get going for Grand Prix qualifying later on this afternoon, and then Sunday will continue as normal with the full Grand Prix schedule. But right now, less points up for grabs for this sprint. 8 for the winner, 1 for 8th place. That's currently occupied by Yuki Tsunoda in the RB. Half a second between him and Lewis Hamilton, and the other RB getting embroiled in a brilliant scrap with Carlos Sainz within half a second still, but cannot find a way through on the Aussie, who is driving superbly. Ricciardo, who's been under pressure all season long. Has this been the unlocking of the Daniel Ricciardo of old here in the Miami sprint as they make their way now through into the braking zone? Sainz closes up through the left-hander of turn 11. Piastri has been with them the entire time as well in the McLaren. Don't forget, that's only a 50% upgraded McLaren, which is performing well at the moment. Lando Norris has the full upgrade as they make their way for the last time uphill through turns 14 and 15, the chicane, and then onto the back straight. This has got to be the moment.
Hamilton has passed Tsunoda on the last lap for 8th position. Finally, he's got ahead coming into turn 11, so that's something for Lewis Hamilton.
Meanwhile, Verstappen, cool, calm and collected and in control, takes his 9th sprint win. Max Verstappen will cross the line to win the Miami sprint. Charles Leclerc comes home in second. Perez rounds out the sprint podium, and the battle to the line for 4th place to the line will go to the RB of Daniel Ricciardo. Carlos Sainz couldn't make it stick, gets the top 5 just in front of Piastri. Hulkenberg with some good points for Haas in 7th, and Hamilton waited and waited until the final lap when he will get a point for 8th place. He pips Yuki Tsunoda to the line. Magnussen, with penalties galore, it might well be a record, finishes in the top 10.
Hamilton himself is under investigation for speeding in the pit lane, and of course there's the lap 1 turn 1 incident that he caused as well. So much in play for Lewis Hamilton. Driver of that race though, no doubt, Daniel Ricciardo, holding on the whole way to 4th position. The top 3 were long gone, but brilliant from Ricciardo.
Well done, Max. First win of the weekend done. Well done, good result.
Yeah, good win. Need to frankly the balance a bit, quali, and the race tomorrow, but good points.
Max Verstappen on the radio for a man who hasn't seemed completely at ease at all this weekend. After sprint qualifying, he replied to his engineer with "lol." That's how surprised he was to get that fastest lap time as ding ding, another penalty for Kevin Magnussen applied. 5 seconds this time for track limits as they come across the line, but controlled from Max Verstappen, who wins this race by over 3 seconds to Leclerc. Perez, Ricciardo, Sainz the top 5. Piastri, Hulkenberg and Hamilton the top 8. They all collect the points. Tsunoda just misses out. Gasly rounds out the top 10. Sargent, Joe, Russell, Albon, Bottas the top 15. Ocon, Magnussen down in 17th with penalties applied. Alonso 18th and last. And we lost Lance Stroll and Lando Norris after an incident in lap 1, turn 1. Let's head over to Rosanna Tennant.
Max Verstappen has just pulled up on the start-finish straight in front of the number 1 sign, and the crowd have gone wild. They're all on their feet. They got their phones out, filming, taking photos. Such a special moment to see Formula One up close and personal. We're so lucky that we get to see it so often, but a really special moment. He's now on the grid. Perez is also pulling up as well. And Max is just doing the last few bits inside the car, and then he'll get out. And he's now waving to the crowd, as you can hear. Big cheer for the world champion and the current championship leader as well. Charles Leclerc has just pulled up in front of me as well, steering wheel out onto the top of the car, and he's just freeing himself with that amazing blue helmet, special for this weekend, special blue overalls, and that is the biggest cheer, I think, for Charles getting out. And they're all waving to Checo Perez, of course, a huge Mexican following here in Miami, and the Latino community as well. So the mechanics are coming on to cool the cars, and I think we will shortly hear from your winner, Max Verstappen. He's just taking his helmet off. So it's all go down on the start-finish straight.
It certainly is. But Jolien, more news coming in from the stewards' room.
Well, Magnus has been given another 10-second penalty, so that's up to 35 seconds. But more significantly, Lewis Hamilton has a drive-through penalty for speeding in the pit lane. So that's Hamilton down as well, which will be 20 seconds added to his time. And that brings Yuki Tsunoda back into 8th. We wonder how Hamilton's done that, speeding in the pit lane on a race that has no pit stops. Now, they came through the pit lane because of the safety car and the incident for Lando Norris. So everyone came through the pit lane a couple of times underneath the safety car, and Hamilton's obviously just not engaged the pit lane speed limiter, and he's had a lapse of concentration.
Let's go! Let's go, baby! Woo!
Can you please? Oh. Okay. Such a clean race, man. Such a clean race. Clean laps all the way through.
I prefer it at the front. Oh, that was fun. Thanks. Thanks, guys.
In case you're wondering, that was Daniel Ricciardo, P4. That's his first top 4 finish in any kind of race format since 2021 at the Russian Grand Prix. Is this Ricciardo back in play, Jolyon? We'll have to wait and see how that unfolds into the Grand Prix. Of course, he'll go into the race on Sunday with a penalty. Let's hear from Verstappen,
and here we are
though.
with the sprint race winner in Miami, Max Verstappen. Congrats on another victory in this format. But talk us through it. It looked like the start may have been a little bit of a slow getaway. You had to really push Charles there into turn 1. How tight was it between you two?
Yeah, I think my engagement wasn't good in the start. So then, of course, I had to squeeze him a bit. Luckily, everything worked out in turn 1. Then, of course, we had the safety car just to calm things down a little bit. But after that, steadily we could increase the gap a little bit, but it wasn't entirely perfect. So we still have a bit of work to do. At least now with the new format, we can still fine-tune the car a little bit. So hopefully we can improve it a little bit for later on in qualifying and especially for tomorrow in the race. But a win is good. I'm happy with that, and it gives us a good few points to look at as well, to improve.
Yeah, points are always nice to add to the card. Now, look, we had a massive victory margin in the sprint race in China. It wasn't quite as big, so what kind of information did you gather today that you can apply for the race tomorrow?
Yeah, China felt really good. I mean, the car was really, really nice to drive. Here, it was a bit more difficult for me, so there are a few more things to improve.
Well, job's only half done. Good luck in qualifying this afternoon.
With the questions there. Let's hear from Leclerc.
Beautiful blue Ferrari this weekend. Great result, P2 in the sprint. Lots of fans here in Miami cheering on Mr. Leclerc. Why don't you talk us through that start first? It looked like you got a great launch and really challenged Max into turn 1.
Yeah, I had quite a good start, and then I was in the inside of turn 1. Obviously, I didn't want to take too many risks because we've got also qualifying later on, and if you have a crash in sprint quali, then you probably don't participate later on. So I tried to end there. We both braked very, very late with Max, but eventually he got to keep the position, and then I was pushing very hard, but in the first few laps, they had a bit more pace. Then we had a similar degradation, so tomorrow it's a long race, so qualifying will be important to be starting as much in front as possible, and then hopefully we can put them under pressure with the strategy.
Well, let's talk about qualifying then. It's coming up here. Job's not done yet today, right? But you were so close yesterday. What was learned yesterday, and maybe even a little bit today in the sprint, that you think you could apply to maybe fight for pole this afternoon?
Yeah, it was obviously very close yesterday. Not many laps in FP1, so hopefully now with the sprint race I got a bit more laps around this track, and I hope we can target for the pole position. So that's the target. Then let's see if we manage to achieve that.
All right, well, great race today. Best of luck this afternoon.
Thank you very much.
Check out P3 today. Looked like a bit of a quiet event for you. You got through the mess in turn 1, and then it was sort of running your own race.
Yeah, it was really, really hard to get through Daniel in the beginning, and once I get through, I got through it quite quickly, but I was 3 seconds from Charles, and given the short duration of the race, it was pretty tricky. I was like getting within 2 seconds, 1.8, but then it was quite hard to get a little bit closer. So anyway, let's look forward for the rest of the weekend.
Checo, when you came out here, one of the biggest cheers from the crowd. What's it like racing here in Miami? You've got a ton of supporters. How about this crowd here today?
Yeah, the fans are amazing. It's really nice to be here with all of them, and I really hope I can give them a great race of the weekend.
How about qualifying? What do you think you got tomorrow, this afternoon?
Yeah, I think we will be able to be strong. So I definitely look forward to it.
Well, either way, you're number one in the fans' hearts for sure. Congratulations.
Thank you.
There you have it then, your top 3 finishers in the sprint race here in Miami. Max Verstappen winning from Charles Leclerc in the Ferrari, and Checo Perez, 3rd place for him in the 2nd Red Bull. Plenty more action coming your way from here in Miami later on. We'll have qualifying for the Grand Prix for you on 5 Sports Extra. My thanks to Harry Benjamin, Jolyon Palmer and Andrew Benson for talking us through that sprint race. Hope you enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll join us later on this afternoon as well. We'll be live at 5 to 9. You can catch us on Sports Extra. This has been an IMG production for BBC Radio 5 Live.